I think you won't be surprised to hear me say that I think we could imagine another one. And I think not only can we, but I think we should and we need to imagine another one. Another economic, but also another democratic system designed with another set of incentives other than profit and efficiency and productivity and short-termism and re-election. I think that we have plenty of sources of inspiration actually to look in different pockets of the world, where we see economic democracy is thriving. For instance, in all sorts of cooperatives and organizations that are taking more of a commons-based approach to their organization. Theories about mutualism and the commons are also giving us some food for thought. And then I guess on the democratic side, which is much more my area of expertise, we are seeing incredible amounts of democratic innovation across the globe and also at all levels of government. So in just my recent OECD work, where I've looked at over 400 examples of things like citizens' assemblies and citizens' juries, where we have a randomly selected group of broadly representative people from society who are tasked with developing complex policy proposals to complex policy problems. So, dealing with issues like, taking a few real examples, 10-year, $5 billion strategic plans, 30-year infrastructure investment strategies. How do we deal with hate speech and disinformation online? What should be our country's foreign policy? How can we reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 30% by 2030? These are all examples of the kinds of topics tackled by these sorts of processes just in recent years. But actually, what I think is most exciting is not even just these one-off examples, which we're seeing loads of, but what inspires me most is to seeing really ambitious public authorities that are experimenting with new permanent democratic institutions, which are what are starting to change that relationship then between citizens and governments in a much more fundamental way. So examples, for instance, like Ostbelgien, which is the German-speaking region of Belgium, where in 2019, the regional parliament in that region voted unanimously to put in place a citizens' council, which is comprised of 24 randomly selected citizens that have an agenda-setting mandate. It's up to that Citizens' Council to decide on what should be the 2 or 3 issues every year that then get put to ad hoc citizens' assemblies. And each of those citizens' assemblies, it's now in their regulation that their recommendations need to be debated at least twice by the Parliament. And then a second mandate of that Citizens' Council is to monitor the implementation of all of this. So you can see how this actually starts to much more fundamentally change the nature of what issues are even being brought to the table, and then the sorts of ideas and recommendations that are being put forward. So, for instance, the very first topic that the Citizens' Council brought up to put to a citizens' assembly was, how can we improve the working conditions of healthcare workers? This was pre-COVID, but I would say that it's an example of why you can trust citizens to come up with really apt and important issues that should be talked about, and perhaps thinking in that more long-term and preemptive way before we were facing this crisis. But just to add on a tiny bit here, because Ostbelgien is indeed a tiny region of only 80,000 people, but then this model of what they've been doing has now inspired the city of Paris to establish a permanent citizens' assembly, which the details of it all will be released this autumn. So a city of 2 million people in the heart of Europe is also another scale of democratic experimentation for these sorts of ideas. And I've been looking at many other examples like this in the new OECD paper that we're going to publish really shortly, that has 8 different models of deliberative democracy becoming a more permanent feature of how democracies function, like those 2 examples that I just gave now. So, obviously, I don't think that these are all of the answers. We obviously need to have more reflection, more conversations, and I would say also with broader groups of people, not just experts and elites, about how we can transition from a capitalist model. But I think we do have some fruitful places to at least start that.